So in the last lecture, when we started, we had a brief history of games, but before that, actually, we were discussing about games. Okay, so what was a game? We discussed that. What is a computer game? Okay, and today we are going to discuss briefly about game mechanics, and then we will go to history of games. Okay, we have already discussed what is a game. We discussed how a game is different from a movie. Okay, there are a few points, you can have a look at that. What was the difference of a game from a movie, from a toy, from a puzzle? Okay, and then we go to the definition of a computer game. What is a computer game? So one important thing is that a computer game is a software program. Okay, it is something which is to be written as a program in a computer. Then there is one player or maybe many players, hundreds of players, who make decisions through the control of game objects and resources. So these are two important things. Can anyone give me example of game objects and game resources that you control? Okay, so one answer is player and asset. Okay, yeah, my question is that we say here that the players, they control, okay, game objects and resources. What are the examples of game objects and what are some examples of resources in a game? Which game objects do you use? Which resources do you use? Muhammad, what is a controller? Can you explain that? Physical thing? Okay, yes. Maybe give some examples. Any game, take any game. Let's say take FIFA, take Medal of Honors, take PUBG, any game. Candy Crush, Angry Birds. And no, we are talking about inside the game. Mouse and keyboards, they are resources for operating system. But we are talking about games. No, rules are rules. Okay, so let me explain this. In FIFA, there's a ball, player, the goal, gate, the goal. Okay, so the ball is a resource that you want to use. Okay, we are going to discuss that. No, so first about FIFA, there is a ball. Okay, it is actually also a game object because it is part of the game. Okay, so they are game objects and some of the game objects are resources. So player is a game object that you control, but the player, every football player is using the ball as a resource and you control that. Okay, player is a character, okay, inside the game. So we are going to see them in chess. For example, you have what resources are the chess discs, or what are they called? Okay, the chess players, do you have the chess characters? They are the resources that you move from one place to another one. In GTA, different cars, okay, you have different vehicles, maybe airplanes, okay, then even the buildings, within the buildings you move from one building to another building, okay, you open the door, you close the door, you pick up some object, pistol, aslaha, and these things, they are actually your resources. Okay, so the definition of a computer game is that first it is a software program, then there are some players who make decisions. What type of decisions? The decisions are through the control of game objects and resources. You use game objects and resources to show your decisions, because the decisions cannot be in your head. You have to show them in the game. So how do you show your decisions? You move something, you make some changes, okay? They will have decisions. And why do you make decisions? What type of decisions? Like for what purpose? So the answer is because you want to achieve a goal. And last time we discussed goals. In case of, for example, FIFA, uh, the goal is actually also the goal of the game. So within that, you make goals. Okay, you make points by having goals on the opposite team. Okay, Adawi, the Fariq Adawi, you make goal, okay, and you gain points. So the person who has more goals or more points will win the game. In other ones, you kill players. So if you kill different players, okay, you actually have achieved goal if you have more points or you have killed more players than the other persons. Okay, so that is the definition of computer games. Now, what is a video game? Okay, and there are some different terms, like you have console games, then you have mobile games, tablet games, etc. Okay, these are different terms. So a video game is a computer game where the video display, such as a monitor or television, is the primary feedback device. So there is some television or some monitor, okay, in a video game that you use actually to see the feedback. Okay, and this is also known as interactive entertainment. Okay, so there is the term entertainment, which is used for movies, dramas, songs. This is entertainment, but interactive entertainment is usually for computer and video games. So in this course we will use the terms computer games, video games, then we have mobile games, then we have console games, okay, tablet games. They all are same for us because we are talking about something which will be played on a device. That device will have a screen through which we can see the the outcome or the feedback, and then it will have some controls like keyboard or mouse or joystick or on-screen touch screen, let's say. Okay, so these are some definitions. Now, two more definitions: the first person game and the third person game. Okay, so the first person game is when the screen shows the same scene of what the player sees, and the player is placed behind the eyes of the game character. So in this case, you can see that, let's say here, this is your ammunition. You are firing the enemies. These are your enemies. So the first person is like you are in the scene. Okay, it is like you are inside the game world and you are moving. So when you move left or right, the camera is moving through your eyes. Okay, so you don't see your player, you see just the things around the player. Okay, so that is first person. You become the first person in the game. You are the mutakallim, like, okay, the one who is the main person. And the third person game is when the player sees himself and the opponent characters or shape or objects, etc. Okay, so the scene below, I hope it's clear to you, there is a soldier, so you can see the soldier. Okay, this person you can see. So in PUBG, etc. Okay, I'm not sure if they also have first person, but they also, at least I know about third person. So can you tell me any game about first person and third person, some examples? First person, yeah, some have. What about Need for Speed game, in which you have, a car, you drive a car? Is it first person, third person? Need for Speed is third person? Both Need for Speed? I think in Need for Speed you have both, because you can sit in the car, so you can see the steering direction inside the car, okay, and you can move it. So it is both. What about FIFA? Second, there is no second person. Do we see any second person? Third person, yeah. Okay, so FIFA is third person because you are outside the player's view, so you can see your player. Okay, so you know the first person and the third person. Now another definition is about the game mechanics. Okay, what is game mechanics? We define the game mechanics as describing what you do to achieve victory or to achieve your goal. Fath. Okay, how do you get to be having Fatha or Nasra, okay, in the game? The game mechanics are the actions that express the game or the action taken by the players to achieve victory. These actions show you how to play the game. What does it mean? It means that you are playing the games, whatever you do in the game, that are your game mechanics. Okay. Also, game mechanics are the things that you can't do. What you can do, what you cannot do. Okay. So in the soccer, the football, like in FIFA, the players cannot carry the ball by their hands. You cannot use your hands. You always use your feet, your legs, okay, to carry the ball or to score a goal. So hands is not allowed in FIFA, okay. And there are mechanics that show you how to start the game, okay. So game mechanics means overall what you do in the game. Giving instructions in the game, well, actually it is part of game mechanics. Okay, let us see. Yes, okay. So this is the example of a soccer game. Okay, so the goal of the game is to get more goals than your opponents. Okay, so the player who has more goals is the winner. Okay, there are some rules then. You have only one ball to play with. Now these are the rules. Okay, you have one ball to play with. The play should be on the rectangular field. Okay, so there is the ground or the field. The ball cannot touch the hand of a player except the goalie. So goalie is only person who can touch the ball with the hands. Otherwise, you have to use your feet. You have two halves, each with 45 minutes. Okay, so there is a waqfa between the first jalsa and second jalsa. Two teams play with the ball against each other. Each team has 11 players. One player is the goalie, so 10 players they are in the field. A player cannot hit another player. Okay, they will avoid another player. That's something about the football normal what we play now. In American football, you actually hit the other players because you take the balls in the hand. The rugby, you know about rugby, right? It is also called as American football. So there you use your hands to take the ball from your place to the opposite and you throw it between the two long poles. Okay, then there is the definition of offside. Okay, what is offside and so on. So there are many rules in football. You have to know these rules. If you remember, we said that a game is an organized form of play and there are rules, so you should know all these rules. If you don't know the rules, you will make foul. Okay, you will make some mistakes in the games and you will be out. Then here are the mechanics. So we have the mechanics for starting the game. How do you start the game? There is a referee who tosses a coin. Okay, there is a toss. The winner chooses the half and the loser team kicks off. Okay, so you have left half, right half, for example. Okay, so you choose one of the half and then the other team has the option to start the kickoff. The team that did not kick off will do so at the beginning of the second half. So the first team, look, there is a toss. Okay, the winner of the toss will choose the half. The loser of the toss will choose the kickoff. Okay, they will start with the kickoff. Then in the second half of the game, okay, the winner will start with the kickoff. Okay, and the kickoff is taken from the center spot. So these are game mechanics. How do you do this? These are also like rules of the game. Okay, so some rules when you do it, okay, they are the game mechanics. Before this there were also some rules. Some of them you can call it as game mechanics because this is how you do this or how you don't do something. Then the player can pass the ball to another player or run with the ball to reach the opponent's goal. Okay, so you have to take the ball to the other goal, dribble the ball, which means that you move the balls in different positions to avoid the opponents, okay? And you pass the ball by kicking it using the inside of your foot, and you shoot the ball using the sweet spot of the inside of your shoe. And how to defend and take the ball from an opponent, these are all different game mechanics, okay? So now we start with another topic, and let's try to finish this as well as some other things today, mainly about history of games. Now, a question sometimes people ask that should we remember the names and the dates, etc. Like here we say in 1951, this person, this year old, etc. No, you don't need to remember this, 1966, etc. Okay. If there is any assignment, etc., that you can read from these slides. Otherwise, actually, I'm not going to ask questions about the dates and the people, which year, etc. Okay. It's the history, it's for your information. Why are we studying history? What do you think? Why should we study history? Yes, why do we study history? Knowledge. Okay, what knowledge will we get from the history? What do we learn if we have the history of computer games? If you don't know what will happen if you know the history, yes, actually, okay, to know how the thing is established, to know knowledge, okay. But the important thing is it's not about just knowing how established, but it's actually appreciating. Okay, so that you realize that yes, it is how people started games. It's not that one day someone started in 3D graphics game and they created Medal of Honor. No, they had to go through more than 50 years. Okay, about 70 years, because the first game, you see, we are talking about 1951. Okay, so about 70 years people have been, designing games. And if you see the very first game, okay, maybe they created the first game in a year, let's say, because it was a PhD thesis, so 3 years, 5 years, you don't know. But now the same game you can create in 1 hour or less than 1 hour, really. Okay, so this is the development, and we want to learn what were the advancements. How was that possible that something which took many years in the beginning, now you can do it in hours or in weeks, for example, days. Okay, so this is how, and this is why actually we are studying, so that you have some, you can say, interesting, but interesting, more than interesting, it is useful in the sense that you appreciate, and the tools that you use now, you will appreciate why are they important, why are they better. And these tools, of course, they were also not developed in single day, but people's, they created one tool, then they improved it to move another, to create another tool, then they realized the problems with that tool, then they improved that to create a third tool, and so on. Okay, and now we have graphics engines. So until this history, almost we don't have any graphics engines. That were out of graphics engines with basic libraries, basic programming languages. Okay, so we start with the 1951. There was in 1951 Ralph Baer, a 29-year-old TV engineer. So he was very young. He was in a TV company, and he was asked to build the best TV set in the world. Okay, now you can understand that in 1951 how the TVs would look like. Okay, so they were like very big in size. Okay, it was not like flat TV these days. Okay, you have already seen all of, and you actually see it was black and white, it was not color. Okay, so instead of some people, they were thinking to advance the technology by creating color screens, etc. And then there was a company who wanted to have more interaction. Okay, so he wanted to build a TV and having an idea of adding an interactive game to it to make it very different from other TVs. That is something. Okay, so when you try to make something different, you create a new product. Okay, but his boss rejected the idea. The boss did not like it. Then in 1966, Rolf Baer, he came back to the idea after 15 years, you see. Okay, from 1951 to 1966, he was thinking about the idea. As I said, it took many years for the people to build something, okay, for the first time, and then improve on that. So in 1966, he came back to the same idea of having interactive TV or interactive game in the TV, and he started building first video game prototypes for chess, video tennis, target shooting, etc. Okay, so in this way we can call him to be the inventor of video games because it was his idea. Okay, so in 1952 there was, another person who was working on his PhD thesis. And as I told you, his PhD thesis may be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you don't know, but it is a long time, years of time. So after many years of work, he illustrated his work with the graphical tic-tac-toe. You know about tic-tac-toe, I discussed it in the last lecture. You have zeros and crosses, okay? Now this tic-tac-toe you can create, if you know the rules of gaming, you can create that maybe in 1 hour, okay? So here in this case, the human was playing against the machine, and this is one of the earliest graphical computer game known to exist today. Then in 1958, there was another person who tried to have ping pong, if you remember, or the table tennis I discussed with you last time. So this is a table tennis. You can see the setup. So a person can sit on a chair. There's a small screen. On this screen, there is a ball, and this is like a table tennis. So actually, this was existing screen, okay, in medical laboratory, okay, mukhtabar, and he used that to actually develop a game in which a ball can move in different positions. Now we cannot understand now how did he control this, using which mechanism, but at least it was something as a game. Then there were again PhD students. So you see students, they are working, young people, they are working, and you are young and you are students, you can also create something new. So they created something which is known as the space war, okay, and this was an interactive computer game, and digital P1 was one. I think it was a mainframe, or mini computer early on, okay, but this was very expensive because the computer was very expensive. So the game, it was an idea, but it did not actually, it was not commercialized. People could not play it, let's say, on their own. Then the same as we talk about Ralph Baer, he has the idea of interactive TV, so he created a patent. What is patent? اختراع, okay. So you have an idea, you patent it so that other people cannot copy your idea. Your idea is protected, and if someone else wants to create an object from that idea, they have to take a license from you. They have to pay you the money of this idea, okay. So he had this idea, and in 1971 he sells the idea to Magnavox. Now remember this company name, Magnavox, because based on this idea the company built something, Magnavox, and it was from Ralph Baer, okay. So in 1971 he sold the idea. Now from 1962 to 1972, and remember we are talking about before 1970, okay. This is from 1962 to 1972. A person named Nola Bushnell, okay. So she used the same space war game, okay. If you remember, the space war game was created by 3 MIT students, okay. So Nola, he was exposed during the study to this space war. He saw the space war game, and then he made this machine, coin-operated machine, arcade machines they are known as. In this machine, he created the space war game, okay. And then there was a company, Nutting Associates. They started to make these machines, okay. And this space war game was created by Nola, which was actually originally created by 3 students in MIT. But then Nola, in 1972, Nolan actually, he left Nutting Associates, okay, and started his own company, Atari, okay. So that's actually the story until 1972, and then after 1970 or 72, we have the area or era of 1971 to 1977. The games were like this. So remember Atari, you may not know this company, but it was very popular company, one of the very first game development company which would create game consoles. Okay, so they built the Pong machine that within 2 weeks broke while being test marketed in a local bar. What does it mean? They were testing this machine in a local bar, okay, and so many people use it for so frequently they would put coin that the machine started not to accept any coins and it stopped working, it crashed. Okay, so that means actually that people liked games, and that was something which inspired, Warner Communication. Warner Communication, the company, which is still there, okay, with some different names, but it bought this Atari for $28 million. Now this is a very big amount, $28 million in 1976. Okay, that was very very big amount. So I would say he earned a lot of money from his company. Okay, and this is how people make company. Like WhatsApp developers, they sold it to Facebook. Instagram developers, they sold Instagram to Facebook, and they earned billions of money. WhatsApp was sold for $19 billion, for example. Okay, now you remember Magnavox? I told you that the idea was sold to Magnavox by Ralph Baer. Okay, in 1972, he sold his patent to Magnavox. So Magnavox released the first home video game in 1972. The name of the game was Odyssey. Okay, the game was closest to a home version of Pong. So you can see it is something like this. This is a console for playing Pong. It's sold 100,000 units. Okay, and at that time people believed that it had to work with only Magnavox TVs, but later on they created other versions in which, like these versions, okay, from different companies, in which you can use any TV with this, and this is then known as a console. Okay, so they were the console games. RCA Studio 2 and Fairchild VES, they were consoles. So how do they work? They have cartridges. Now, maybe you have seen some cartridges. Here, for example, you would put a cartridge here, or you would put a cartridge inside, and the cartridge was like a CD, okay, or like a floppy disk. Before the floppy disk, etc., you had cartridges. So this cartridge would contain game data or the game instructions, the whole game, the executable files. You would put in here, and you would start executing the game. Okay, so you can change from one cartridge to another cartridge. Then they introduced the joystick to the home market, which was shipped with 9 different games. Okay, so a joystick was something uh, you can see here. Now even the joysticks are different. So these are one type of joysticks. Now you have different types of joysticks for PS4 and Xbox, etc. The joysticks are different. Before there was a lever, you would use the lever left and right to play the game. Okay, so these are the existing joysticks. Then there are some joysticks here. Okay, and also you can see the cartridges. Okay, the cartridges are the CDs like thing. Okay, so Atari, they created the cartridge based home consoles, and there were multiple games. Okay, and this is Atari 2600, you can see. Okay, so it was very popular. 6 million were sold by 1980s. Within 3 to 4 years, about 6 million Atari were sold. So that was very popular company. Then there was in 1976 XCD game, okay, who released the first violent game, okay, Death Race 2000, that requires players to drive over stick figures. So you can see this was a small screen, okay, and you can see the two directions. So two players would play, and they would compete. The one who kills more people is the winner. The one who kills more. Okay, so there was a small car somewhere, and you would move left and right. So very basic, just like black and white. Once again, I tell you that you can now create this game in even like HTML5 canvas in 1 hour. Okay, very easy. Okay, but at that time it was a big technology. Okay, so you would actually kill people, but people, normal people, they became very angry that there is violence in the game. Okay, so they stopped this game, and the game was removed from the market. Okay, And unfortunately, now we see that the violence is quite common in games these days. Almost all the games, they are about killing something. Even Angry Birds, you kill something, okay? Then the other shooting games, PUBG and Fortnite, etc., they are all about killings, which is very unfortunate. But the people enjoy killing, and that's something, unfortunately, we are doing. Okay, then we have company from Japan, Nintendo, which I believe is still there. Do you know if Nintendo is there or not? Because a few years ago, Nintendo developed Nintendo Switch. Okay, and I'm not sure. Yes, after Switch, if they have anything else, I'm not sure if they have something. Okay, now it's still developing games. Okay, but are they developing just the software or also hardware? Like in this case, we can see, yeah, they have this hardware. Okay, so it is like a table. It has some controls here. Okay, and it has the screen as output. So this was a console by Nintendo. Okay, and its name was Othello. So this is the screen. You can see that it was something like chess, you can call it, or checkers game. Okay, so this was a checkers game in which you have two teams, the black team and white team, and you move something and you get points. Okay, so because it was coin operated, so you would insert a coin to start the game, and it was so popular that it causes coin shortages in Japan. So there were no coins because all the coins were put in the machine or with those people. And the people in US, they started school absences. So they would not go to school, they would go to these places where you have these machines. So that was a success for the company, but a huge, learning that if the games are there, then the people would play games and they would not focus on their studies. And unfortunately, these days it's the same thing. Young students, they play games all the day, all night, and they are losing their studies, which is not a good thing. Okay, then we know the famous Pac-Man game. Okay, original name was Pac-Man, then it became Pac-Man. Okay, it is the most popular arcade game of all time. Okay, and almost everyone of you must have played it. Anyone who has played or not played uh, Pac-Man? Hmm? Yeah. Anyone who has not played it or who does not have idea of what is a Pac-Man? Okay, good. Who has not played it? Ahmad, you have played or not played? I don't know. Anyone who has not played this game, Pac-Man, because it is one of the most famous game played. Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay, so this was the first game in which even the girls they started. Oh, Abdullah had not played it. Okay, so, well, this was a game which was even played by girls, and the girls started to start playing this game. And nowadays, I think if anyone is playing, that will be only girls, young girls, because it's easy. There is no violence. Just you try to escape this thing. Okay, so the idea is you have this player, which is a Pac-Man. Okay, and these are your enemies, so you avoid your enemies, not to touch them or not to eat them. Okay, and your goal is to eat all those dots, all those things which are here. Okay, so this is like a puzzle. You move within a puzzle to do it. Okay, good. Many people have played it. Okay, then after the 80s, 1980s or late 70s, you see 80, there was actually now personal computers, because in 1978 there was the first Intel personal computer. Then you have Microsoft DOS also there. Okay, so there were small companies of game developers. Okay, they are known as third-party game developers, which means that they are independent companies. They help you in game development. So Activision was one such company. I'm not sure about these days, but I have also played some games of Activision. It was very popular in 1990s, late 90s, 98, 99. They created some very good games. Okay, Activision. So even this Tony Hawk, I think this is quite recent games. Okay, and Activision was one of the first games to of companies to develop games. So they introduced the Atari 800, and then they created different games. Okay, 1981 Nintendo, it created Mario, again one of the very famous games in the history. Okay, and also there was a game Berserk, which was a horror game. Okay, like you have zombies and you have some people. So, although if you see it now, you'll be laughing. What's horror about this? It is very black and white. Like there are only three colors: white, black, and orange. What is horror about these? But at that time, people were not used to it. So one young person, 18-year-old boy, he got a heart attack and died after playing this game, maybe because of horror. Okay, so that was something that we had a first death because of video game, playing Berserk game. Okay, and Mario Brothers, you can see the first one was very basic one. Okay, so the idea was only the screen would not move. You had one screen. Okay, and he would only jump up and down. So this was the first Mario. Then the Mario we see now, let's say, it can also go left and right. The screen can move. Platformer game. Okay. Okay. Then we have other games. In 1983, we did not have much video game because the economy was very poor. People did not have money. The companies did not do very well. So, there were not something particular. And then there was a company called Commodore. Now this is something I have played myself, Commodore 64. Okay, that is an inexpensive computer. The good thing was that it was not a console, not only a console, but it had also computer. Like I used basic programming language to write games in this one. For example, I created a small game from a book. I studied a book because at that time there was no internet. I'm talking about 1992, 93. Okay, so there was no internet, and we had a book on game development. So from that book, we copied the code to create a game in Commodore. So it was a computer. You would create a game, and then you can play the game, and it had a cartridge in which you would store the game. So this is the Commodore machine, and it can be used with a TV and with a monitor. Okay. So after that, then in 1995 to 1988, we again have good economy and the video games are back, which means they become popular. Okay, so there is Nintendo NES. Okay, you can see this one, but it was not very popular. Okay, another console. Then Nintendo released Super Mario Brothers. Okay, and that was very popular, Super Mario Brothers. So before we had only Mario. Okay, the very first one, it was when the Mario was here in 1981. Okay, and then after 5 years, I think 1986, yes, there was Super Mario Brothers. Okay, which was a different one, and that becomes very hit. Okay, so you see that Nintendo, because of only one game, it owned 90% of the video game market. That was the most popular, like a video game making company. Okay, and also in 1986, Sega releases Sega Master System. This was another one. Okay, continuing with the history, we have Game Boy, also from Nintendo in 1989. That was a handheld, the very first one. Okay, like the PSP, PlayStation Portable one, the very first one. You can see it was black and white, Nintendo Game Boy. Okay, I also played this one in 1990, 91. I had this, so it was very simple. It has some games like Tetris. I had this version, Tetris. I played it. It's very nice, and for children, very addictive. So Tetris was one of the first game. Okay. Okay, then we have the improvement in the form of, first you have Super Mario 3, okay, then you have CD technology. Okay, in 1991, Sony starts developing CD technology, and then after that, that was the first time when you have CD, actually, you have, massive PC gaming. Okay, because you can create bigger games. You don't need, before you cannot make bigger games because you cannot copy them, you cannot sell them. Okay, so with CD it was possible. Okay, so this is the founder of CD, compact disc. Even now we don't use CD. Then in 1998, 1989 to 1992, you have 32-bit Pentiums. Okay, and the cartridges, they were replaced by CD-ROMs, which were faster, which had more capacity. Okay, and you have modern
3D gaming. That's how 3D gaming starts. Okay, with the CD, apparently it is a technology. It has nothing to do with the games, but because of one technology, other things change. Because of the CDs, which were meant for computers, even the gaming has changed. Okay, and because of the internet, the gaming has changed. If there was no internet, there will be no multiplayer online games. The gaming would not be like this. So every hardware technology changes, you also have its effect on the software technology, and similarly for games. So Sony PlayStation 1 was released, I think in 1992, maybe. Okay, it had a 32-bit processing, which was very fast at that time, because even at that time, many computers were 16-bit. So having a 32-bit processing was very fast. It had a built-in CD player, and you had games like Resident Evil, Gran Turismo, Twisted Metal, and Siphon Filter, etc. I have not played these games. I don't have much idea. Resident Evil, everyone knows, it's the zombie game, okay, and zombie films also. But actually, the good thing was that you have 32-bit processors, and you have a CD player, which made this very, very popular, and people started buying this, okay. At the same time, Nintendo continued with the Nintendo 64, okay, and it had a 64-bit CPU, okay, which was faster than 32-bit, and it's sold over 500 million. No, sorry, it was over 500 million 16-bit operations per second. Okay, so it was very fast. 500 million 16-bit operations per second was very, very fast. Okay, it has built-in pixel drawing processor. Okay, and only 4.5 megabyte of RAM. You can see very small RAM, and this was the drawing speed of polygons per second, because in video games, okay, although not in this one, but in computer graphics, the important thing is how many polygons per second you can draw. So the more polygons you can draw, the better the technology is, whether it's a programming language, whether it's a processor, whether it's some system. Okay, so this Nintendo 64 was originally for young people, younger market. Okay, and because it used cartridges, okay, not CDs, so it was very expensive. Okay, that was one issue. Okay, it was also very dependent on software. It has its own particular software, its own operating system. So one of the most popular games is that one, which is the this Legend of Zelda. Okay, so in 6 weeks it generated more revenue than films. Okay, so it was so popular, Legend of Zelda. Okay, towards finishing, we will just finish these few slides, then we will take a break because we have 2 hour class, so we want to finish this topic, okay, very quickly. Okay, after PlayStation and after Nintendo 64, the big change was Windows 95. Before Windows 95, there was Windows 1, Windows 2, etc. Okay, so Windows 95, they released Game SDK and DirectX technology. Now, DirectX technology was very popular and very efficient technology for building 3D graphics, etc. Doom is released and Mist is released, and you can see the graphics of Mist. Wow, at that time, actually, in 1995, 96, this was quite good. Doom, I have played this game. This is first-person shooter. It was like a horror game or a thriller game in which you would kill your enemies. Okay, and at the same time, we have the World Wide Web. Okay, the internet has come. So as I told you earlier, the internet is a new technology which also, affected the game in a positive sense. Then in 2000, Sony releases PlayStation 2 in Japan. In 2 days, it sells 1 million copies and runs out of stock. Okay, only in 2 days they sell 1 million. Okay, and those, let's say, who would buy it for 500, for example, they would sell it onward for 1,000 because it was rare. People needed it, so people earn money out of it. Okay, and 1,000 was, of course, very big money, and people would sell it for $1,000. Similarly, Microsoft releases Xbox and Nintendo releases GameCube. So 2000 to 2001, that was a very historical moment because many new technologies were released because of the hardware, because of the Pentium machines, 32-bit, etc. Okay, So from video games, you also have movies like Tomb Raider, Lara Croft, Final Fantasy. They were actually video games, but after that, you also have movies. Mortal Kombat, for example, was a game, and then they created movies. Many Mortal Kombat 4, 5, 6. I think many different versions of Mortal Kombat. I'm not sure how many of you have played the game, or how many of you have seen the Mortal Kombat movies, but they were from the games. Okay. Then Sega of America, they stopped hardware production and become software company, and they created online games. Now that's something. So Sega, started creating online games, and they also created cell phone games in Japan. So Sony PlayStation, it was launched in May 4, 2000, and in October 26 in US. So the price was only $299. Okay, but in 5 years it had more than 90 million sold. Okay, 2 years earlier than PS1. So PlayStation 1 has also 90 million, but maybe in 6 7 years. So it's sold only in 5 years 90 million, which is a huge thing. Okay, and this is 128-bit 300 megahertz processor. These are some three special purpose co-processors, etc. Okay, so the RAM was 32 megabyte, very fast speed. It had support for DVD and CD. There was MPEG 2 hardware, then there is analog controller, etc. Okay, but the software development is tough on Sony PlayStation. That was an issue. Hardware was good, but the software development was tough, so there were not many games. GameCube from Nintendo. Okay, so you have a 405 megahertz processor. Okay, PlayStation had 350. It has 405 megahertz. It was faster. It has its own geometry engine for drawing objects. It has a mini DVD. Okay, this you can see here. This is a small DVD on top. Okay, and 6 to 12 million polygons per second. Remember, if you go to PlayStation 1, I think it had 150,000 polygons. So this is more than 10 times polygons per second. Okay, and 16 megabyte memory, and its emphasis was on easier development of games as compared to PlayStation 2. Okay, so these are some technological changes. Very quickly, through the last few slides, we have Microsoft Xbox. Okay, it uses DirectX API. This is Pentium 4, okay, and 733 megahertz, very fast computer, okay, 64 megabyte of RAM, and so on. Okay, so it also has support for internet now. Okay, so people started playing online games, and this is very fast, 100 plus million polygons. Okay, the resolution was also HD. This is the HD resolution, and it had HD TV support. So that was one of the best things in the market, Microsoft Xbox. Okay. Now present, well, it is not present, but you can say around 2010. Okay, there were other consoles. Nintendo released Wii, Sony PlayStation 3 and 4. Now we have 6, I think, or 5. Yeah, now we have Sony PlayStation 5. Right, it was released, I think, a few months ago. Microsoft has Xbox 360, Xbox 361. Okay, and you have other things, particularly because you have Android operating system, iPhone, etc. So now the focus is on game development for these platforms. Okay, okay, just give me 1 minute. Last slides, and then we are going to start. What is that? PlayStation 3. Okay, and what you can see here are the advances. Okay, like you have different CPU and graphics card, and if you remember in the last class we discussed that good games require graphics card support. Okay, without graphics card, the games, these popular games, they cannot be played. Okay, although the RAM is 512, and on newer ones, do you know how much RAM is there in PlayStation 5? Any idea? So if you search Google, 16 GB, no, but it has AMD CPU 8 core. Okay, so this is octa core, 3.5 gigahertz, and then memory is 16 GB. Yeah, you are right. 256 bit. Okay, and it has 825 GB SSD and 667 GB can be used. Okay, yeah, it is. If you search in Google about PlayStation 5, I'm talking about PlayStation 5 specifications, you will see in the results that how much advanced this is. Okay, so 512 KB L2 cache is very high, because normally what I have, for example, in Core i3, let's say it is 128 or 256 kilobyte of L2 cache memory, but this is more than that. Okay, we will stop here and we will take a break of about 5 minutes. We will start. Should we? No, no, no. As I told you in the beginning, no, you don't need to memorize this. Okay, but it's good for information. Okay, if there is any homework, etc., then you will have it as homework, not a quiz, so you can see it yourself from the slides and you can answer that.